Welcome to Fluxedo Junction. I'm Scott Kugler. Each episode we bring you the best music of all genres from throughout the world, and this week we'll be speaking with guitarist, record producer, composer, writer, and filmmaker David Starobin. David Starobin is a highly honored figure in the world of classical guitar. Called arguably the most influential American guitarist of the 20th century by Soundboard magazine, Starobin was inducted into the Guitar Foundation of America's Hall of Fame in 2011, was awarded Lincoln Center's Avery Fisher Career Award in 1988, and is the dedicatee of more than 300 new compositions, including music by composers Elliott Carter, George Crumb, Paul Ruders, and Gunther Schuller. A native of New York City, Starobin performs on both 19th century and modern guitars, and has received Grammy nominations as guitarist and as classical producer of the year. In 1981, he founded Bridge Records, a record company which has been honored with 36 Grammy nominations. Starobin is a co-founder of the guitar department at the Curtis Institute of Music and also teaches at Manhattan School of Music, where he was the holder of MSM's Andre Segovia chair. Starobin studied guitar with Manuel Gayol, Alberto Valdes Blain, and with Aaron Shearer at the Peabody Institute. His musical compositions are published by Editions New Rochelle in New York and Edition Wilhelm Hansen in Copenhagen. His latest release on Bridge Records, Virtuosi, is an homage to 7 leading composer-guitarists of the past 2 centuries. Virtuosi presents 8 previously unissued tracks alongside remastered versions of 5 Starobin classics. The album opens with Starobin's torrid reading of Giuliani's popular Grand Overture, and that's where we're going to start things today, here on Fluxedo Junction. So I guess let's jump right into it. Your latest release on Bridge Records, which is called Virtuosi, am I pronouncing that correctly?
That is correct.
Okay, it features compositions by 7 composer guitarists like Giuliani, Soar, and Segovia. You had posted on social media that you feel this disc represents your best guitar work, and that's a striking statement coming from someone as accomplished as you are. Would you mind describing the journey of this project? I know that 8 of these are previously unissued tracks, and 5 of them are remastered pieces. How did you decide on what to include?
Yeah, I was searching for a format to issue a couple of pieces in particular that I had recorded a while back. In 2019, I recorded a bunch of Matika pieces from his Opus 20, and I also had recorded, I think in 1995, these 5 anecdotes by Andres Segovia. And I was searching for a format. Usually I do single composer albums like Matika or Soar or Giuliani, but this one seemed more of a mixture, certainly of centuries, 19th and 20th century. So I thought, what do these guys have in common? And of course, they were all virtuosi. They all played the guitar really, really well, like at the highest level for the 19th century guys, and they were also really good composers for the instrument. Segovia did not compose that much, but he did compose. And there are quite a few works that have surfaced. This particular piece, the 5 anecdotes, there's a little bit of mystery surrounding it. It was never published formally by a publisher. It was published in a 1947 issue of the Guitar Review, which was, in a way, Segovia's own magazine. It was owned and run by Albert Augustine Limited, who were Rose and Albert Augustine, the nearly inventors of the nylon guitar string. And they published this journal. At its most, it came out perhaps 3 or 4 times a year. And Segovia was a major editor. In fact, for a while, Segovia lived with the Augustines in New York City. And so they published these 5 anecdotes, and I played them. I thought, oh, God, it's a really beautiful little piece. It has folkloric influences and then much more serious compositional aspirations. Someone described it to me as French in style, and I suppose harmonically you might say that. But to me it seemed, sort of a kind of portrait of who he was as a player, compositionally. And it has all sorts of lyrical lines and kind of late romantic harmonies, and it all seemed to be very much a personal piece that I could easily relate to, having grown up with the man's playing in my ears.
Would you mind describing what the physical demands are for maintaining your career? Every time I've seen a classical guitarist perform, I get the same feeling I get when I'm watching a high wire act, and it seems like it's such a delicate thing to perform that way at such a high level and maintain that standard. What is your day like in terms of just keeping your ability up?
It's a pretty easy one to answer. I'm sitting in a chair in my living room, and it's an armchair where I'm leaning back very relaxed, which is my general position for sitting these days. As I retired from the concert stage, it's more than 5 years ago now. I keep up the instrument and I keep practicing it because I'm a teacher at Curtis Institute in Philadelphia and at Manhattan School of Music in New York. And so I have to be able to demonstrate reasonably well for my students if there's a point that needs demonstration. So I'm not playing at a concert level anymore. I'm 72 years old now, and I noticed, and for some people this doesn't happen. Like for pianists, they keep playing and they're amazing, and they can go on into their 80s, 90s, even hundreds, and still maintain the technique. The guitar has such fine motions, and I completely understand what you're saying about a high wire act. It is so difficult to master the very basics of beautiful sound production and have enough technique to be musical so that you can shape large forms effectively. All of that stuff, more than ever, we have incredible guitar players now. We don't have so many incredible guitar players who are also really fine, deep musicians, simply because I think it takes so long to really master the technique at a level where you can be really expressive. And that's the trick. A lot of people can move their fingers quickly. Not so many can move them quickly and have a depth of emotional involvement with the instrument due to its technique.
Now, you're a record company executive as well as an artist, and this question may be of more specific interest to an aspiring musician, but would you mind describing how much of your time is spent on music administration matters as opposed to actual creative work, and how do you maintain a balance between the two?
Well, the record company is run essentially by two people. My wife, who just came in the door, is picking me up, and we'll be on our way to the office this morning. I wrote ad copy for an internet mail out on Arnold Schoenberg for a film that I directed that's being screened in New York next month. And so my life is really kind of all over the place. The teaching at the two institutions requires that I travel to Philadelphia every 10 days or so. And I stay for a couple of days there. And the record company it's an adjunct of all of the things that I've done, all of the musicians that I've met and that Becky, my wife, has met. And it's grown now over 43 years. We're in our 43rd year. And we issue, perhaps a dozen to 15 records every year. And so I'm right in the middle of record production on all of those. And sometimes as a producer in the studio musically, sometimes just as an executive producer where outside producers work for us, and I sort of put together the larger project, the booklets, the liner notes. But I could not do any of this, I must say, without my wife and the relationship that we've built, because we both cover each other in certain areas of weakness as well as strengths. And learning how to figure it out was, we learned by the seat of our pants, really, because we just started the company with having no experience. This was in 1981, so we were both 29 years old. And it was just a decision because I had been making recordings for other labels, and they weren't so interested in my new record, which I thought was great. It was New Music with Guitar Volume 1, and it had music by Hans-Werner Henze and William Bland and Charles Warrenin and Barbara Kolb. And it was new music, and the execs didn't know any of the composers that well. And so we took a plunge, and we put out a record, and then followed it up with another record. And I don't know, we've got 600 or so titles in the catalog now. And it's just another part of life. We had a couple of children, and now have a couple of grandchildren in the mix, and kids take time too. So
Sure.
The whole thing has been trying to live a good life, but it's definitely a crazy life for us. I would say that.
many years ago when I was in college, and this will be my last question, you've already been more than generous with your time. Years ago in college, I studied with a gentleman named Robert Phillips, classical guitar with Robert Phillips, and one of the things that he did was to help provide a sense of context for me about the music we were working on. He would help draw lines between different disciplines like art and theater, and it would help me better understand the piece in addition to exposing me to new things. And I wonder if, in your role as an educator, as an artist, as an executive, if you could help describe maybe some of the non-musical things that continue to inspire you.
Well, yeah, I have a long relationship with a composer named Wilhelm Bland, who 4 years ago stopped composing. He was very prolific. He's 76 years old now. Extremely prolific, wrote piano sonatas, just really a fine composer. Became a painter and a prolific painter as well. So currently, I think my wife and I are sitting on more than 500 paintings up here at both the record company and the house. We have a gallery. We're exhibiting them. I love visual art. As I said, I made the film that's being premiered in New York next month. My wife and I, 3 or 4 years ago, wrote the libretto for the 13th Child, which was an opera composed by a Danish composer named Paul Ruders and premiered. It was produced by the Santa Fe Opera. So I'm spread pretty thin, but I feel like, for me, I go where my passions take me, and so if it happens to be making a film about Arnold Schoenberg, then I throw myself into it. If it happens to be playing a guitar piece by Matika, I do that, and I haven't really, it's not so planned out. It has all rather evolved over the my adult life since leaving school.
Well, sir, you've been...
Wait,
yes, sir.
one more thing.
Yeah.
Is that the Robert Phillips from Florida? Or
Yes, that's him.
So we have a connection. Of course, he was my student at Brooklyn College.
Yes.
So
that's when I first became aware of you, actually studying with him, and for that reason and many others, I'm so grateful for your time, and thank you so much.
Sounds good, Scott. Been a pleasure talking to you.
Likewise, thank you so much, sir.